the top 8. We have JT up top on Boros Energy against Collins Mullen on a winning in.
Collins Mullen, of course, on Amulet Titan. We did see both these players earlier this weekend. JT on the play. It's going to be a tapped Arena of Glory. Mullen's going to open up on Crumbling Vestige, Arboreal Grazer, and Urza's Saga.
Good start, though we have seen Mullen struggle with colorless sources a few times.
There's a second Arena of Glory for Jay and Ragavan. That one's going to struggle against the Arboreal Grazer.
Ooh, tough.
Blocks Diamond, as you've been calling it.
Oh, yeah. Of course, it's given name.
There's a Saga to Chapter 2, and a second Saga for Mullen is going to pass back. And when we covered Mullen, we've seen a number of Amulet Titan players this weekend. There's some deviations in Mullen's deck list, and also we've just seen him be able to play way more fair games. You see Galvanic Discharge go for the Arboreal Grazer, but here comes a Urza Saga token, and that's also going to be discharged.
I mean, it's also netting a couple of points of energy for JT, where I think a lot of the time you end up wanting to just net some energy, so something like Guide of Souls is going to be just a touch better at jumping something.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So the Ragavan does manage to connect. See 2 energy left over. Talaria West exiled, so
Ooh,
treasure token.
That's the one Talaria West.
Yeah, that's a real cost.
I mean, that's something about having all of these bullets in the deck of something like Amulet Titan, where you go, oh yeah, I have a very customizable game every time. I have these very intricate sort of loopy plans. One card getting put in the exile zone can make it so much harder to do the sort of bending over backwards necessary to create infinite 6/6s.
Right, pretty significant development there as Jay misses land number 3.
Ooh.
There's a treasure token from the Ragavan, but just 2 Arena of Glories. This smells like a Blood Moon to me. I don't know. Like, what is the texture of a hand that makes this keepable?
I completely agree with you. I think Blood Moon is a really good shout here. I think this is something where it could maybe even be that the plan was for treasure to start allowing for things like white spells to get cast a little bit more. I can imagine even just something like Voice of Victory and saying, all right, well, I've got pressure. If I can find a land, I think I just have to keep.
You see Mullen is going to put that first Urza Saga to Chapter 3, floats a colorless, finds Amulet. That's all pretty well scripted.
Oh my, this looks like Mullen might be thinking of passing?
Oh.
If I'm reading the body language correctly, which, I would not say I'm known for, but...
And that could mean a couple things. It could mean there's no land. I don't think that's what it means, because there's clearly something to think about, right?
Sure.
It could mean I have a bounce land and it's great next turn.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So a lot of times you'll see the bounce land like we are now, Gruul Turf, coming down, picking up Crumbling Vestige, and at times you just want to pick up itself. But if you're not going to spend the mana, maybe you just pass.
Yeah, just a pass. There is that Urza Saga in Chapter 2 as we head back to JT, who will draw for turn. Ragavan kind of in the squeeze under a potential construct token here.
Right, this is the interesting spot where a Blood Moon is not actually that good because of how layers work. Now, the Urza Saga would not go away. That rule recently changed with the release of the Final Fantasy set. But it would be a mountain that had gone through the experience of having a new ability applied to it. Mm-hmm. So it would still be able to make constructs and then would not gain lore tokens anymore because it lost that ability.
So here's Vexing Bauble for Jay. Can slow things down if Mullen's reliant on a Summoner's Pact. No attack for Ragavan. Doesn't want to run into a construct, so that will be made, and we head back to Mullen. Draws for turn. Urza Saga will go to Chapter 3. Mullen will float 1 mana, and then go find, I assume, an Amulet of Vigor.
Yep, and this is the situation where we've seen Mullen, he even paused after he drew his card. I would say he is one of the Titan players I have seen the most comfortable in the games, just saying, I don't need to go infinite. I will just go big enough and lean a little bit harder on constructs. Mm-hmm. To great success.
Yes, absolutely. And those mana woes, Jay still missing that 3rd land, really nothing to do with that treasure token, just kind of hanging out with this Ragavan now. And we'll see exactly how big of a turn Mullen can have. We know there was a Crumbling Vestige in hand, and there is another bounce land. Here's Simic Growth Chamber, 2 Amulets, 2 untaps. That's 6 mana. 1 in the pool as well. Could be Titan, could be Green Sun Zenith. Growth Chamber will bounce itself, and it is Green Sun Zenith for 6.
Ooh. Jay needs to have something basically right now.
Right, so the Zenith is good. That's going to find Primeval Titan. There's Primeval Titan. Trigger. That's going to find 2 lands. Some conversation about that Teleria West that was exiled by Ragavan, and yeah, Jay's seen enough. There was no Blood Moon there, nothing doing with the 3rd land drop, and just not enough. Kind of fell behind. The Ragavan was just kind of checked too effectively, maybe leaning a little hard on that one.
Yeah, there's one you can see Jay just basically say, do you have the Mirror Pool in your deck? We're good? Yeah, okay, we're good.
Yes. So players are going to go to the sideboard, and I do imagine that this is one of the tougher matchups for Boros Energy.
Yes.
Players do go to sideboard here. Does Jay have some options here?
This is honestly an extremely tough matchup. There's not really any good way to slice it. This is something we even saw at the Modern Regional Championships in Portland in the finals earlier this year, where Amulet Titan is really good at powering through a lot of hate, but cards like Damping Sphere are the sort of thing that you can end up seeing Amulet Titan trip over a little bit. I'm looking and see Wear Tear, which is also pretty good. Wrath of the Sky is quite nice against the Urza Saga plan. This isn't completely hopeless, but I would say this is the type of matchup where Jay really wants to have, honestly, about 2 pieces of interaction and a ton of pressure, which is a surprisingly tall order when the games can be as compressed as these ones are.
Yeah, did not take a lot of turns there. You know, all these tools. If you have the Wear Tear against the Urza Saga, you can buy a lot of time.
Yes.
Combine that with some pressure. Doesn't take too much extra, but you do need all of that stuff in a very small window. So that makes sense. That makes sense why it's such a difficult matchup. For Collins Mullen, can reach the sideboard now, up a game. Does the Amulet Titan, does this deck make things worse for energy in the sideboard?
So this is one where I would say Fire Spout is one of the best gets here. This is something that can actually just mop up a bunch of creatures, and ultimately Boros Energy is a deck that goes pretty wide, so Jay trying to use either Ajani or Ocelot Pride to make a bunch of cat tokens, for example. That's going to be really nice. I suspect Force of Vigor is a card that Collins may feel obligated to bring in just because of the existence of Blood Moon. Having a way to get out from under that is absolutely crucial in this sort of matchup. Past that, I think there may be some seasoning to taste if, say, Collins wants to have access to Pithing Needle to get off Urza Saga to turn off Ajani or Goblin Bombardment or something, but I'm low expectation on that. Soul Guide Lantern, also a fine way to check Flage. Collins is someone who I would say is one of the best I have seen ever do it in Modern, and developing very specific plans of how he wants a match of Modern to play out or a matchup to play out. So I don't want to speculate too hard, but those are the standouts for me.
And you have to know that Boros Energy is going to be an archetype that Mullen has a plan for.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so we've seen a number of cards from Edge of Eternities this weekend. Nothing doing in this matchup, but if you're playing Modern, you're playing Standard, maybe you're interested in the Jeskai Blink deck that's been performing very well this weekend. You're going to need Quantum Riddlers. Maybe you want to play the Affinity deck. We're seeing how that deck develops in the Modern format. Pinnacle Emissary going to be important for you. Edge of Eternity is just some really nice hits.
Right. There's a bunch of stuff in the last few Standard sets that have had some pretty unique card shapes and been great at actually trying to hit in Eternal formats, which has been particularly heartening on my end for, somewhat self-serving reasons. But seeing the likes of Pinnacle Emissary, Ice Till Explorer, and so on making waves in Modern has been awesome.
So you can order your Edge of Eternities now at starcitygames.com/MTG-EOE. I'm blanking on the card name. My favorite card from Edge of Eternities is the Cube thing. It's an uncommon for black and 1. It's a 3/2 sacrifice outlet.
Oh, yeah. No, that one's super nice.
Yeah, you can sacrifice a creature or an artifact to surveil one.
I think it has Caller in the name.
Umbral
Caller Zealot.
Yes. Good work.
Sorry, This is really tough for me when a lot of these cards have 3 or 4 card names that I see them with at some point.
Right.
And I really don't want to get it wrong.
You were talking about Carrion Feeder earlier on the weekend, and
Ooh.
that card, like the Umbral Call of Zealot, just has good stats. Does not start as a 1/1.
Right, exactly. It's a little bit more fun to kind of have the creature be a normal-ish game piece.
Right. Players looking at opening hands here in game number 2. Collins Mullen quickly up a game in this winning in at the regional championship. A lot of pressure on Jay to find a good hand.
Both of these players starting off really strong today, so you can tell that there's some amount of pressure that they can feel and going, okay, I really just don't want such a strong start to slip away from me. I believe both of these players were 10-1-1 at one point.
Yeah, definitely picked up a couple losses in day 2 here, looking to right the ship. Jay does keep on 7. Mullen will mulligan to 6.
This is something you'll see from Amulet Titan a good amount of the time because the good hands are so much stronger than the medium hands. And because something like a bounce land can just count as multiple land drops, the deck is a lot more forgiving on the mulligan front than I think it would appear at first blush.
And if you're coming from a background, maybe you're really into retail limited, you keep a lot of hands that can make land drops and play Magic. Modern, or just generally constructed Magic, is going to be punishing on that. And as you're saying, Amulet Titan has such a specific game plan that you really have to ask for a lot more than lands and spells.
Right, exactly. And especially whenever you're on the draw against a deck like JT's Boros Energy deck that is so good at applying pressure earlier in the game, you can't just say, well, I'll win on turn 4. That's not a given that we're going to get to that part of the game.
Turn 4 must exist in order for you to win on it.
Right. You see, I would say more than any deck in Modern's history, you'll see Amulet Titan play the turn 1 Urza's Saga with the plan being, okay, I will kill them on turn 3 when this gives me an Amulet of Vigor at the cost of a land drop, and that is worth it. But here, when you also know that JT is probably going to have some ways to either check an Urza's Saga or apply so much pressure that that might not be good enough, Collins has to be a bit choosier.
Mullen now on a mulligan to 5. And this is definitely one of those games where those pieces of interaction, be it the main deck Blood Moon, be it the sideboard Wear and Tear, at this threshold of cards, Jay can maybe get this game with just one piece of interaction at this point.
All right, well, Collins Mullen has found 5 cards that he likes.
Jay will start us off, going to be cracking Marsh Flats. Certainly a priority on basic planes, but it's going to be Sacred Foundry. You start to get these reads. I'm always trying to feel out, is the Blood Moon in the hand? What's the game plan? And Ragavan on turn 1 is the plan.
Might just be a handful of fetches. Got to get a red source somehow.
Could have the planes in hand too.
Right.
Basic Forest, Amulet of Vigor. So both players with some pretty good turn 1s.
That's the start you want.
Here comes Ragavan. Mullins to 18, Primeval Titan exiled.
All right.
Jay a bit short of casting that.
3 more of those, though. Collins is in trouble.
That's true. Arid Mesa is land number 2, as you were kind of predicting. An abundance of fetch lands here.
Uh-oh. I started to say Blood Moon Rising. There's a forest in play.
Yeah, the forest gets around it. It keeps the window for Besage open.
True.
But the Blood Moon still will be a big deal, as basic planes is defined. Ocelot Pride, Damping Sphere.
Okay.
Similar thing.
Right, this is a spot where this card is really strong against a bunch of the bounce lands in the format, making them both only tap for 1 and specifically tap for colorless, which means that if Collins were to try and rebuild from the mulligan with a Spelunking here, that would be much harder than it normally would be.
Mullen draws for turn. Land number 2 is Crumbling Vestige. Kind of a funny one that cheats the Damping Sphere a little. It does get 2 mana this turn. There's Damping Sphere, draw a card. Maybe another land coming into play.
Spelunking, draw a card.
And Urza's Cave, gain 4 life. The combo. Mullen to 22. Back to JT. Coast currently clear for Ocelot Pride and Ragavan. They will rumble across. Mullen to 19. You'll see a Ragavan trigger. Green Sun Zenith. that one, Jay could cast. Here's a double check. Oh, I can only find green creatures. No, thank you.
Right, right.
Flooded Strand, Vexing Bauble.
Well,
Tightening the screws.
okay, so Summoner's Pact doesn't count as a card. Bounce lands are weaker. Jay has some pressure, only one card left back.
Shifting Woodland is the land for Mullen. Here's Green Sun Zenith, X equals 3.
Is this 6? That card's an okay blocker.
Yeah, 2/4.
Good at rebuilding from a mulligan?
Definitely gets in front of these creatures. Yeah, 6 is the find. I also wouldn't expect Jay to have a lot of things that just cleanly answer a 6.
Right. No, you're totally right. This is a spot where Galvanic Discharge, for example, is going to be a bit harder to justify keeping in post-board.
Jay will crack that Flooded Strand here on the end steps. Down to 16. Expect a Surveil land here. In acknowledgement of a missed cat from Ocelot Pride.
Ooh, tough.
Elegant Parlor is the find. All right, Jay surveils. Arena of Glory to the graveyard. And can Jay find a way to make a good attack into this 6? Land number 4 is Marsh Flats.
So there is a world, if Jay has a Flage, that you can Flage attack 6, or excuse me, Flage target 6 and then attack with Ocelot Pride. It's kind of ugly. You probably just send the Flage upstairs? You've gained the life anyway at that point.
Sure. You could just treat your creatures as expendable that way. Just prioritize getting the 6 off the battlefield and just make an attack and see what happens.
Sure.
But Jay is going to start by fetching, going to find another Elegant Parlor, going to surveil, get some information before making such a decision. Keep in mind that the Vexing Bauble could also immediately draw a card if there's a nice one on top.
I think it was a Thraben Charm. So now Jay's being faced with the question, would I rather have Vexing Bauble in play or 6 gone?
You're alluding to the Thraben Charm mode. I believe it deals double damage the number of creatures you control.
Yes, that is correct. All right, so that's a leave on top and Blood Moon. Not bad.
Okay. Another nice little lock piece here. Jay is going to give a read to 6. Make sure they're not missing anything about what that could do on an attack or a block as we head back to Mullen.
All right, and Jay now also has the City's Blessing. I appreciate there's a lot of patience being displayed here, where if you give up Vexing Bauble in Jay's seat in order to draw their Thraben Charm, assuming we saw correctly, you are saying, okay, this one turn of attacking is worth my Vexing Bauble. Because it isn't that you even have to trade Vexing Bauble for the Thraben Charm. It's that you have to make that exchange right now.
Right. Simic Growth Mountain for Mullen will pass the turn. Now Jay draws the card that was surveilled to the top. And now cracks the Vexing Bauble.
All right, may not have been
Here's
Thraben Charm after all.
Guide of Souls, Voice of Victory, gain a life, make an energy. Has to use the treasure for that because of the Damping Sphere.
Okay, gaining the life, though, is going to accrue enough to start attacking soon, which I think is what Jay's real motive here is.
Right, that life is going to make a cat off of the Pride, too, on account of the Blessing.
Correct. 2 of them, in fact. All right, it's raining cat and cat.
And Mullen has a lot of stuff to work through in terms of removing these permanents that stop him from playing the game. Jay has a lot of threats. They seem to be of generally less consequence, but a small range of things could make this lethal very quickly.
Right, this is the spot where Jay has kind of recognized that, look, I have Blood Moon and Damping Sphere in play. I have lands checked 2 different ways in some respects. I just need to end the game because given infinite time, Collins will find a way to break out of this.
Right, 6 is going to attack. It's going to mill 3 cards. Beseiju going to be picked up. That basic forest has been there, so the green mana is online. Jay thinking about lining up some blocks against that 6.
Yeah, and I think you are priced into this triple block that we're seeing from Jay. It's not pretty, but you can't. The 6 will recur Beseiju again next turn. And at the moment, Collins is threatening to go after Blood Moon and then Damping Sphere, and then Collins is effectively free from all of it.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. You see Ragavan and a cat biting the dust, trading with that 6.
God, there's also the uncomfortable wrinkle where if Shifting Woodland can come online, then all of a sudden it could become 6 and recur the Beseiju.
Okay. We're getting into some plays that could do something in a couple turns.
Yes.
But it's going to take some time.
Right, and Ocelot Pride, Voice of Victory, that interaction with the mobilized tokens works out quite well for Jay.
And so the Ocelot Pride doubles any tokens you still control at end of turn that you made this turn?
You don't have to still control them, I believe. Just whatever you created this turn.
Okay.
And Voice of Victory only tells you to sacrifice the ones that it created.
Mullen's giving this a deep think. This is a pretty important turn. Has that Beseiju, can start to go to work, but there's Blood Moon plus Damping Sphere. Has to think about how much damage he can take on subsequent turns as well.
You can see the deep sigh where you know there are so many ways to sequence all of this, but there may only be one way where you win.
And Mullen will pass, leaving up that Beseiju. Head back to Jay. Something I'm kind of wondering about with the Ragavan being in the spread of blockers, if there was maybe one to be dashed, but it looks like quickly going to combat here. So Cat, Voice of Victory, 2 mobilized tokens, Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride. These 2 mobilized tokens, that's going to represent 2 life and 2 energy with the Guide of Souls, and there was already 3 energy here, but not going to spend any. And that's 3, 4, 5, 6 damage.
I believe we are going to see the energy spent, and at this point, for posterity's sake, Jay is mostly just trying to do everything by the book.
Sure. Yeah, so the energy spent, that is 8 damage.
All right. So I think we're seeing Collins fall to 12?
Checks out. All right, so now you see some triggers here. The mobilized tokens going away, the Ocelot Pride making some tokens for its trigger. So a couple cats. Are these warriors?
Yes.
That's what you mobilize as warriors?
Correct. The Mardu accepts all kinds.
All right, so here's Beseiju. Okay, little judge call. I saw some gesturing at Voice of Victory. I think a bit of question about what you can do on your opponent's turn is likely what's happening here.
Yeah, this is really interesting, where historically you've even seen Grand Abolisher show up, which is a card that does turn off activated abilities, but Voice of Victory does just say your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, so this should be fine.
Yeah, if that is the question, that is my understanding of the situation.
Okay, so it looks like what's happening is Jay wanted to see about priority in the end step with the card Surgical Extraction and is going after Boseiju who are indoors during the end step. All right, so now we also know that Colin's hand is Otawara, Crumbling Vestige, Summoner's Pact.
Okay, so the Vexing Bauble being sacrificed, that opens up this Summoner's Pact here. Extracting the Besieges, it certainly makes sense when you have like these two lock-ish pieces, right? You don't want to get Besieged again.
Right, exactly. And there's even a degree where I think looking at the sideboard, you look at Surgical Extraction, and you think, how disruptive is Boros energy? Are we sure about this? But I think JT even identified that making sure that Shifting Woodland is able to come online with Delirium or being able to tag all of the Urza sagas or something like that out of Colin's deck could just completely change the texture of the game.
Yeah, and things like your Galvanic Discharge, they kind of just don't really play, right? So you got some stuff to cut.
Definitely.
Jay is going to go find a basic Plains while the Blood Moon's not on the battlefield.
Giving up Blood Moon for Plains just really feels like the selling your watch for a better watch band.
All right, so we have finished Surgical Extracting. We have finished Besieguing. Can Mullen do anything? We know about a Summoner's Pact in hand.
Summoner's Pact implies a lot, though. Simic Growth Chamber only tapping for 1, and the Summoner's Pact being the first spell of the turn, which would then tax the Primeval Titan that comes on the back of it. It's a tall order.
That is tough. Mullen on 12. Take a look at the other side of the battlefield. So Jay has 6 energy. Creatures at the sands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's already lethal.
I believe by my math, assuming you count resolving a Guide of Souls jumping something, I believe this is 14 damage coming back Colin's way.
We agree. Mullen checking out the situation as well.
Three from the Pride, 3 from the Cat tokens. That's 6. 4 from the leftovers. 2 from the tokens that Voice of Victory mobilizes gets us up to 12. And then when you jump something with Guide of Souls, you're up to 14.
Mullen going to give it a think. Doesn't want to just concede, but it's tough.
Right, that's the point where you have to start thinking about some, I'll just say particularly ugly lines in which you maybe have to Summoner's Pact for Arboreal Grazer just to block something, and that, whew.
Yeah, you can see the frustration on Mullen's face.
Yeah, you can see he's one resource short 3 different ways, and you just, whenever it's someone who's played a lot of combo, whenever you end up in that spot, you can't help but ask yourself, this can't be that barely off, right?
All right, here's Aftermath Analyst, mill for 3.
Oof. Okay, so there wasn't a land among them, but I believe that did get Collins up to Delirium.
Okay. Here's Crumbling Vestige.
What can Shifting Woodland do?
Okay, here's Otawara. Bounce the 3-power Ocelot Pride.
Okay, and there's a blocker in the Aftermath Analyst. I think this might actually make Jay a point short.
Goblin Bombardment. That card's pretty good at finding a point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
We're going to go to game number 3 here. Our graphic, I apologize. There's some stuff with the pre-recorded matches. It's displaying incorrectly, but this is a tied score now.
Right, and this is the point. We have seen a draw come up earlier in the day where it was okay for both players. A draw would be devastating here. These players have more or less very likely locked up a Pro Tour invite, which is incredible. But if you're still playing, you're still hungry. This is the spot where you need the win to punch your ticket into top 8 and keep fighting for that World Championship invitation.
Players going to recheck the sideboard guides, take the opportunity for this open deck list tournament. Meanwhile, maybe you can do some reading yourself. Check out the StarCityGames.com newsletter for all kinds of news. Keep up on what's happening in the world of Magic. You can find information about the event we're here at this weekend, SCGCon Houston. Check out sales. Check out Edge of Eternities. Check out pre-orders on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
A bunch of cool new sets announced recently. SCG was right on top of all of it. And if you want to stay on top of it too, you can head on over to StarCityGames.com/newsletter.
It is free. You're hanging out. You're watching this. You got a minute.
That's like one of my favorite prices. Like, easy top free.
It ranks so high.
Easily. Ooh, and you can see some reconfiguring of the sideboard on Collins' side.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting when you see a card like Damping Sphere because it does have some kind of impact. It can mess up your bounce lands. You saw the issue with the Summoner's Pact in that game, adding a mana to the next thing you cast. It's not always clear if that's a part of your opponent's plan, and maybe also you saw Jay reach for their sideboard, and you think that maybe the spheres are coming out on the draw. A little cat and mouse there.
Honestly, I kind of think Collins is looking at bringing in Force of Vigor.
Yeah, there was just multiple things to hit with it there.
Yeah, you saw 3 different artifacts and enchantments that were all sort of the hate suppression pieces in Vexing Bauble, in Damping Sphere, in Blood Moon. And then Jay also showed Goblin Bombardment, which a lot of the times I would say you almost play like a burn spell, where you put it on the table and then your creatures are dead and your opponent is with your creatures. But just being able to tag that, that ends up mattering. Right? It's not just a rounding error.
Right, this is win and in Magic at the Regional Championship. Players shuffling up for a deciding game number 3.
It's also the spot where I suspect that Collins really is to lean harder into being a legit combo deck rather than trying to be a fair deck.
Yeah, the quote-unquote fair aspect is just checking those prison pieces to make sure the combo deck works.
Right, I think there's this temptation to say, oh, you know, I can kind of hedge my bets a little and do a bit of both and try and be a little fair, have the ability to threaten this combo finish. But we saw there, I do think Boros Energy, and especially in the way that JT's been piling it, really puts you to the test and says, no, you need to pick a lane, and I know which one I hope you pick.
Mullen's going to be on the play here for game number 3, really giving this 7-card hand a good think, and rightfully so. A lot of pressure on this game. This is the difference between a top 8 and just a cash finish.
And a Pro Tour invite. Come on now. I know we have both fist pumped at that one, friend.
It's a good weekend.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good weekend.
Oh, yeah. I'm buying the plane ticket. I'm imagining what it'll be like to buy the plane ticket after that.
And Mullen really not sure about this hand. And ends up mulliganing. I think if you are that in the tank, this decision is probably right, to choosing the mulligan.
Right, that's something we go, okay, no, this isn't a good hand. It might have been close, but especially whenever you're playing against an opponent that can put you to the test on a couple of different axes, it can feel so bad if you say, okay, great, this hand is close to really good, and your opponent plays a Vexing Bauble, and it turns out your whole hand was leaning on Summoner's Pact.
And it looks like Jay actually has not yet locked in on the mulligan decision. Maybe he was just waiting, thinking 7 versus 6, how it could stack up.
I think they have a one-lander.
And Jay keeps.
All right, yeah, we saw them have some mana problems game 1, but this can be the one where if you have, say, a couple one-drop creatures, a couple hate pieces, you kind of just have to say, okay, well, I hope my deck gives me a land or two. Especially if one of your one-drops is Ragavan.
Right. Mullen now looking at a 6-card hand. Will this one play? It does. He will keep on 6. And he will start us off. Otawara, Amulet. So far, so good.
Yeah, this is what you want to do if you're playing Amulet Titan.
Step 1, Amulet. Step 2, Titan.
Step 3, question marks. Step 4, question mark 4A. Step 5A, question marks again.
Jay is going to find a basic Plains. So Ocelot Pride or Guide of Souls. I don't know, maybe a Vexing Bauble. We'll find out. It's going to be Guide of Souls.
And it's not clear that Jay had a Vexing Bauble, but generally speaking, this is something you learn over time whenever you're playing a sort of disruptive aggro deck. You want to actually deploy your pressure first, because that does take a turn in order to start moving the game towards a conclusion.
Turn 2 for Mullen is going to be Amulet of Vigor, and 6, a Brick Wall.
Ooh. Really strong start from Collins. It isn't the fireworks lights out thing where Amulet can literally win on the first turn, or second turn rather. But this is something that Jade is going to need to chew through in order for them to win. And so in some respects, Collins is presenting multiple questions at the same time. Okay, second land drop. This is something that we thought they might not have had just yet. So we know there's a game ahead of us. All right, so it looks like Jay has the second land. Has to double check what 6 does from this point, and this is one of the more interesting spots where you are just basically having to thread the needle between if you want to be able to actually apply pressure or if Jay is going to value staying alive. Chooses to deploy Voice of Victory. Nets an energy and a life for their trouble. Not going to be able to declare an attack. Back over to Collins. Takes the untap. Really having to think through this. This is a spot you can see the deep breath. Just thinking, okay, I know my opponent is tapped out. We see an attack from 6, so Primeval Titans aren't going to be attacking this turn. Does find a Boseiju, one of the better pickups that you can find in this spot, because in some ways this is just insurance against future disruption that Jay could have. A lot of the ways that red and white in particular are going to be disrupting the opponent's game plan are through on the battlefield permanents, right? This isn't the type of thing where you see very much in the way of counter spells, which a lot of the format is kind of hanging its hat on in the way of Force of Negation, for example. Voice of Victory getting in the way. So no life loss, but Collins happy to draw the card, and with Collins at 20 life, happy to pay a little bit of life to draw that card. Notably, also putting a sorcery and an enchantment into the graveyard, so a future shifting woodland is going to be a little bit closer to Delirium, which is one of the pieces of the puzzle of the Aftermath Analyst Make Infinite Primeval Titans flashy kill that we've come to expect from the deck over the weekend. And now this is the spot where Colin says, okay, I know I probably cannot literally kill my opponent this weekend. There is no Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Valakut finish that is going to kill my opponent outside of combat. But whenever you may have access to infinite Primeval Titans, infinite Aftermath Analysts, and so on, you can ostensibly then loop Otawara, loop Boseiju, and actually make it so your opponent never gets to commit to the battlefield again.
Actually just lock your opponent out. So
right.
One of the many ways this deck has evolved to end the game in kind of so many different configurations.
All right, so 6 has picked up this Boseiju, and it looks like Collins is taking a more practiced approach and just being really patient.
And that's how we've seen him play all weekend. Taking kind of these layup, these slow approaches, making sure he can cover every base. Not overcommitting, taking as much time as he needs.
Right, this is when we've seen 6 get in for it. Not even a real attack. It was it was just the attack into the Voice of Victory, but it did pick up the Boseiju, and I'm really interested. I would love to know what's in Colin's hand.
And JT's got to start pushing some damage through here. Guide of Soul's Voice of Victory, it is kind of a nice clock. You get to keep making energy. Maybe pump something on this very attack step.
Okay.
Right, so here is the Voice and the Guide. 2 mobilize coming in. 2 tokens coming in. There's the free energy. It's going to pump the Voice of Victory. Sorry, the Guide of Souls, rather, will pump itself up to a 3. 6 coming across from the Voice and its tokens.
I like this one a good bit, in particular, whenever you know your opponent has access to Fire Spout. This is the type of thing, especially if Jay maybe leaned into having something like Galvanic Discharge back in the deck post-board after seeing how hard it is to chew through 6. Having a way to get more energy turn over turn looks really nice.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and 6 is currently an issue in the game. Here is a Johnny. Gonna bring its cat brother, gonna bring 2 energy and 2 life.
All right, here is the de-legended token version of Jazal Goldmane.
Ooh, I was going to ask if you had the name.
Oh, I know too much.
So that's something I feel like I should know, so I'm going to try to remember that. Jazal Goldmane. There's a card for Jazal, right?
So true. Out of Commander 14?
Right, those
13?
mobilized tokens, those are going to go away, and we're back to Mullen's turn.
Notably, no land drop for Jay. I mean, in some ways, I would not necessarily call this freeing, but in some ways, it does just kind of really drive you in a very specific direction. When you know your opponent has the Boseiju to check any lock piece that you might try and develop, pressure is a fine way to go.
Yeah,
it's scarier.
Casting a creature over something that gets Boseiju is probably a better use of your turn, you're saying?
Right. This is a situation where you go, okay, I know that is more or less futile, especially whenever Collins didn't do anything with his mana on his turn. So I do like Jay just leaning into the pressure portion of what's going on, because you do know at the end of the day that damage is the most important thing when you're on the Boros energy side of the matchup.
And a Johnny's a big deal, because I believe that Jay is just a Goblin Bombardment away from lethal. Like, it just does so much damage. How far off could that be?
Right, right, exactly. Okay, well, wow, here's an attack from 6. I suspect Collins might be missing lands.
Well, Urza Saga is found.
That counts. And now there's the question, does Jay maybe want to chump block with a Cat Warrior to transform a Johnny?
It is an interesting question.
All right, well, here's an answer. Jay
No.
to 16.
All right, so what else can Mullen do? That 2 damage, not really an essential part of the game plan, so...
18, excuse me. Sorry, Guide of Soul's life from before. Acknowledged getting the energy, so it wasn't a missed trigger, but it looks like maybe Jay hadn't written the life down.
Sure.
Oh, Amulet number 2. This is where it gets scary.
Yeah, that Urza Saga discarded to get that from the graveyard with the 6. All right, what else can Mullen do? Double Amulet.
Yeah, I mean, another fetch land, and Collins could be clear for takeoff.
Mullen in the tank. Sort of his happy place, I gather.
Sure.
Here is that bounce land. It is
All right.
Simic Growth Chamber. 2 untaps at the ready.
All right, 1 untap utilized, 2 untaps picking itself up. That's loud.
Right, tons of mana here. Gonna get out the trackers for a bunch of different colors. Green, blue, red, colorless. Speaking of signs of things to come.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we have 3 green, 2 blue, 1 red, and now what time is it?
It's prime time. So that's going to use all of the mana, but that's going to mean Primeval Titan finds 2 lands with 2 amulets. And that's why we have so many different color indicators as we follow Mullen through this combo turn, as Lotus Field is the first of the land selections, and Mirror Pool is the second. Mirror Pool is going to make some colorless mana. That's important for activating the Mirror Pool itself. Lotus Field makes 3 mana of 1 color. Going to make 6 green mana, and now the Mirror Pool will copy the Primeval Titan. There is still a trigger on the Lotus Field to sacrifice 2 lands. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But first, let's make another Primeval Titan. Our Primeval Titan, trigger. Find 2 more lands.
And now this is the interesting spot where 6 is already attacked. So theoretically, Jay is going to get another turn. It's just really hard to tell if it will be a useful one.
Right. Yeah, we're in that territory where Mullen, what you want to do, Amulet, here is get into those Aftermath Analyst loops, sacrifice that Otawara, keep getting that back with your hand with a bounce land, and you could just bounce all of these permanents.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's Simic Growth Chamber and Echoing Deeps. Echoing Deeps copies the Mirror Pool.
2 untapped triggers for both, so that Growth Chamber is going to make 4 mana. There you see 3 green and a blue. Another tap, 4 green, 2 blue. Simic Growth Chamber bounces itself.
Collins puts the library down without shuffling, but I don't think that he's quite done with that this turn.
No. And here is a fun wrinkle. We haven't seen a combo turn with 6 in the middle of it. I think we do have to resolve this Lotus Field before we do anything like that, though.
We have some stuff to resolve for sure.
And there it goes. Sacrifice the 2 lands.
All right, so there are some sacrifices. Now 6, notably grafting Retrace onto everything in the graveyard.
And here comes Arboreal Grazer. We know about a bounce land that was previously returned. There's the Simic Growth Chamber again. That's going to make 4 more mana. 5 green, 4 blue, and a colorless still in the pool.
And notably what this Retrace is also able to help do in this position is it just puts lands that are in your hand into the graveyard, which is awesome for something like Aftermath Analyst, as Summoner's Pact is cast by Collins.
Yeah, on the topic of Aftermath Analyst, I imagine that's where we are going from here. And there it is, Aftermath Analyst. This is the big, new, and different kind of combo piece for these Amulet Titan decks. This is the card that opens up those big loops So when it enters, you mill 3 cards, and then you can sacrifice it to return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield. Importantly, Lotus Field doing some work to sacrifice lands, so you can keep on recurring the same lands over and over when you get going here. The Amulet untapping them all, making tons of mana along the way. All right, so here is Aftermath Analyst. 4 green, 3 blue, 1 colorless in the pool. Mill for the Analyst.
Hits an Urza's Saga and a couple of Explorers. Notably, doesn't actually need Shifting Woodland to go infinite here, because you can just copy the Aftermath Analyst with Mirror Pool over and over. Okay, notably, that was time in the round.
Okay. A spot that Mullins has found himself at least one other time in this tournament. But the setup here, it's not going to take more than 5 turns.
No, no. All right, here's Green Sun Zenith. Spending 2 mana, so this is X equals 1.
Arboreal Grazer.
Shuffling Green Sun Zenith needs to get back in there at some point.
The card does tell you to shuffle twice, so may as well indulge it, right?
Oh, definitely. I appreciate that Collins Mullen resolved the most lawful neutral Green Sun Zenith in history. It does say search for a green creature with mana value X, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle, period. Shuffle Green Sun Zenith into its owner's library.
I'm just playing the cards as printed, all right? And there goes the Aftermath Analyst. We're going to return all of the lands from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and then those amulets, they're going to untap them twice.
This is a spot on Magic Online where you can just feel your opponent's laptop heating up.
It's certainly one of those spots where you appreciate that Magic Online can track the floating mana.
Right, right.
All right, Mullen's going to talk through the loop, that Aftermath Analyst, and
So the whole thing is that the Analyst mills 3 cards every time this one iteration of the loop happens. And because there are 2 amulets, you can see it is 2, 4, 6, 8, 14, 15, 16, 32 total mana. You net a bunch, you mill your whole deck over, then you use Beseiju, you use Otawara, bounce all the permanents, destroy all the lands, and then punch your ticket into the top 8.
Congratulations to Collins Mullen, 12-2-1, and more importantly, a top 8 competitor here at the U.S. Regional Championship at SCG Con.